to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Here.
Chilada.
Here.
Malloy.
Here.
Casper.
Here.
Lloyd. Here. Barry.
Here.
Menza.
Here. 3.1 COVID-19 update.
Yes, it's my pleasure to present two plans to the board. And I just a couple of acknowledgments before we begin. First, to the members of the faculty and staff that helped us develop them. Some of them are here in the audience today, as well as input from Kelly Bolivar, who's not available to us today, but just a great amount of speedy effort on the parts of Marion, Byrne, and Keegan, who did an absolute brilliant job of getting this in shape as quickly as we were able to do it. So now just a couple brief highlights of the plan as I know the board has poured through these items. Two plans. The first is if there's no stay granted, it honors the ruling of the lower court, or if the appellate court upholds the ruling of the lower court. Three levels of mitigation strategies. Level one, the green, is if 1% or fewer people in the building are positive from contact at school. Masks optional. You understand that under Plan 1, that is the plan that we do not have the authority to require masks under any circumstances. So we did the best that we could with the other mitigation strategies that are still in play. Masks are optional in the green. There are no physical distancing restrictions or restrictions for extracurriculars. We'll still get lunch, 3 feet at lunch whenever possible to honor those who are choosing to wear masks. And of course, we'll still be masked on the school bus. That's a consistent trait you'll see throughout this as transportation is governed by federal instead of state law. And we'll offer testing to those who are identified as close contacts through our contact tracing, and no one will be excluded. Level 2 is moderate transmission in Plan 1. That's if more than 1% but less than 3% of the people on a campus test positive as a result of contact in the building. Masks are optional for vaccinated individuals and strongly recommended for those not. And we start maintaining physical distancing at 3 feet whenever possible in all settings. That includes during extracurriculars. We will consider virtual options for extracurriculars and consider recommending or making masks optional for outdoor activities. And we'll strongly recommend masks for indoor activities during that phase. Again, we'll continue to do contact tracing. We will notify families of students who are identified as close contacts. We will offer our Test to Stay program to those families. And we will recommend that they wear masks during that period of time. And again, we will not be excluding anybody who is asymptomatic. And then in level 3, the red substantial transmission phase of that first plan is when 3% or more of a campus is positive as a result of contact at school. And we will strongly recommend masks for all individuals, regardless of vaccination status, both in and in the hallway in the classroom. We will maintain 3 feet or more of distance in each classroom. We will maintain classroom cohorts as opposed to blending and intermixing. Again, this is if 3% or more of a given campus is positive from contact inside the building. And we will try to expand to 6 feet whenever possible when masks are removed to eat. And students are strongly encouraged to mask at lunch when not eating or drinking to honor those that choose to wear masks. And again, our contact tracing, that rhetoric will ramp up a bit as we become more insistent that it's a good idea for parents to allow us to test students to stay. Now I'll direct your attention to Plan 2, which will be the alternative scenario should the court grant a stay between now and the appellate court's ruling, or if the appellate court overrules the ruling of the lower court, and in which case school districts would then regain the authority to require masks. And you'll see in level 1, with minimal transition, the circumstances for the green, yellow, and red in Plan 2 are identical to the circumstances for the 3 levels in Plan 1. However, our behavior is a bit different. In minimal transmission green, masks are optional for all individuals, and we'll try and distance kids at 3 feet at lunch to honor those that choose to wear masks at school, so that they have a bit of distance when they take their mask down when they're eating. And we will do contact tracing for close contacts. Testing for close contacts will be optional, regardless of vaccination status. However, we will offer it to all close contacts, whether they're vaccinated or not. No school exclusions for those who are deemed close contacts at school in the green. In the yellow, that's moderate transmission from 1 to 3% of a campus positive due to contact at school. Masks will be optional for vaccinated, strongly recommended for those who are not fully vaccinated, and will begin to maintain physical distancing of 3 feet whenever possible in all school settings, including lunch when masks are down. We will also start considering alternatives to extracurriculars depending on the type of extracurricular activity. And contact tracing test to stay will be strongly recommended for those that are not fully vaccinated and identified as close contacts. However, we will not be excluding those who are non-symptomatic and not positive in the yellow. If school exclusions will occur for those not choosing on-site testing if not fully vaccinated. So if an unvaccinated child refuses test to stay in the yellow of Plan 2, then they'll be home for the 5-day period. In level 3, that's substantial transmission, 3 or more % of a given campus is positive from contact at school. Masks will be required for all individuals inside school buildings regardless of their vaccination status. We will maintain 3 feet or more of distance in the classroom. We will increase to 6 feet of distance while eating at lunch whenever possible. We will consider the configuration of extracurricular activities, considering virtual options or rescheduling or canceling events that could lead to additional transmission. We will be following in all phases whatever rules IESA comes up with for interscholastic play. And in the red, during Plan 2, contact tracing will be conducted, identifying close contacts to positive cases. Test to stay will be required for those who are not vaccinated and offered to those who are. School exclusions will occur for those that are close contacts and choose not to participate in our test to stay program if they are not fully vaccinated. And that is it for the summary. I'll answer any questions or comments from the board.
I have one. These triggers, what triggers each one? Level 1, level 2, level 3. These are weekly numbers?
That's a really important question, Dean. I meant to cover that. So yes, we publish those results in our weekly update to all staff and the board, typically on Fridays for the previous week. Now, that's not going to be quite soon enough for us because we're going to want to inform students before dismissal on Friday what level we're in for the following week so they can be prepared for Monday. So we're going to go to a Thursday calculation weekly.
So it'll be Friday through Thursday.
We haven't decided if it's either going to be a Friday through Thursday 5-day calculation or a Monday through Thursday 4-day calculation, so that we're not going back. You know, when you go back over the weekend, you lose a little bit of validity or accuracy when you're doing 5 days in a 7-day period instead of 5 days in a row.
So Fridays wouldn't count on
If we do Monday through Thursday, then Fridays wouldn't count. So we haven't ran the math on, we want to model the past few weeks to see what the difference would be, the two different ways.
That was going to be my next question. If we applied these standards to the last 3 weeks, what would have been the results?
Well, we modeled the last 2 weeks, so I can tell you about
2
that.
weeks,
So
then that's
all campuses would be in the green this week. And 4 of the campuses would have been in the green last week, and 1 campus would have been in the yellow last week under these percentages. With the understanding to consider that there's a chance that there may be, we don't know what our positivity rate's going to be once we take our masks off.
True.
So just
That's
another
true.
consideration. We'll be measuring as we go and getting to the bottom of what we chose.
So then my next question is, these numbers, I mean, if you take one day off a week, that's 20% of the whole week. That kind of makes these numbers, are the numbers going to be adjusted, these actual numbers, 0 to 5, 0 to 9, so on and so forth?
No, it would be, it's an average, so.
It's an average per day or per week,
No,
right?
per week. And
Okay.
the question will be whether it's going to be a 5-day week or a 4-day week. And we're going to run those scenarios both ways to see which way is a more accurate way of
Okay.
doing it. We don't have a preference now.
I
And we
understand.
really won't until we know whether or not there's a mathematical preference. And I think it's going to.
Okay. And now, the interscholastic competitions are governed by the IESA, which is completely out of our hands.
Yes. Typically, our conference considers IESA rules and has to follow IESA rules in IESA contests.
Yes.
Sometimes our conference rules will differ from IESA rules for non-IESA events. And in that case, we would defer to conference rules if there's no IESA rules for that type of event. So IESA if available.
Sure.
Conference if not.
Yes.
And then if there's no conference rules governing a certain event, some events aren't conference events. They're just things that we do with neighboring
And
schools.
it's usually the host
We'll follow
school's
whatever the
rules.
regulations are for the
Right.
host building.
Okay,
And if it's us, if we're the host, these will be our
okay.
regs for our local ones.
Yesterday, the governor indicated that he's going to ease the mask mandate regardless of what happens. That seemed to be very clear. Is there, I would like to, if, when we approve this, if we can have a cut that if the mask mandates, mask option guidelines are changed, that we don't have to, that we will move to those. We're gonna have to move to those, right?
So the recommendation I'm making today is that you adopt Plan 1 starting Monday, and that you give me the authority to switch to Plan 2 if the appellate court's ruling
Right,
demonstrates that we
right.
should.
I don't wanna have to be, I don't want another 2-day gap between when something happens and us being able to act on it.
Well, I mean, certainly the board can extend me the authority to interpret changes in governor's orders and apply them. And then, of course, I can always write my opinion of that and then share it with Darcy, who can shop it
Well-
one at a time through the board.
All right,
However you'd like to do that.
because he keeps throwing this February 28th date around. We are gonna meet on Monday, but then we're not scheduled to meet until March. And there could be a change.
Well, I'm assuming that if the governor relents on the mask order,
Well, if the, we're.
it's not likely he's
right.
going to forbid masks, in which case both of our plans are
Right.
still in bounds.
Okay,
The problem would be if the appellate court did something that we can't predict right now that
right,
makes something in both plans inappropriate, in which case we're going to need counsel and we're going to need
okay,
more collaboration and then more action.
okay.
From everything we can imagine right now, having plans 1 and 2, Plan 1 in effect and Plan 2 in the queue puts us in a well-prepared, strong position.
Of whichever way the appellate court goes.
That's right.
But I mean, it's 1 week today that the ruling came down. I don't think a stay is coming. But, doesn't look like it. Okay, so, Plan 1 then.
Dean, the absence of of an action one way or another on the stay is what's motivating me to bring that
Yeah.
recommendation for Plan 1 today.
Other comments from the board? Okay. Hearing none. Moving on. 4.1 Union Report. Okay, thank you very, very much. Okay, we're going to move to public comment. Again, same rules apply. See lots of familiar faces, so I'm going to be brief, but 3 minutes a person. And then we are going to be polite. We are going to respect each other's opinions and respect each other's ability to have our 3 minutes. Go ahead, Angela. You're fine. Well, here, just take this one. I can talk loud enough, it's fine.
Keegan, can you hear Darcy?
I'll make sure you can hear me.
Check. Can you hear Angela? No?
All right, we are going to start public comment. Again, 3 minutes person. All ground rules apply.
I'm Karen Lyons. You guys know me from being in the union, union co-vice president for our ESPs. Yes, we sat down as a group, went over some things. One thing that we have been experiencing lately, and I've noticed it within other schools that I think we need to take into consideration too, is what about when it happens with peer pressure and bullying? It's happening right now in other schools. It's happened in one of our schools, at least I've heard of today, when the kids are not, they don't wear masks. And what are you doing wearing the mask? Why, there's just a lot of pressure. So think about that. You're putting additional pressure on the kids because now it's going to be social pressure. They don't feel right, they're put in a predicament, and this whole scenario has been putting the kids right down the middle. So please, again, think of the kids, social, emotional, their behavior. We're going to see more behavioral issues. There's still a lot of questions. We still have to figure out some things. I know this is going to be an ongoing issue. And then also in regards to the governor's decision, that was not necessarily for the school. School's going to be pushed back, he said, till March. So yes, he said he wants a gradual removal by February 28th, but it did not include schools, he said.
My name is Nicole Becker. I'm a mom from Memorial. Segregation, it's a noun. The act or practice of segregating, a setting apart or separation of people or things from others or from the main body or group. The state or condition of being segregated, set apart, separated, or restricted to one group. This is something I never thought my children would experience, but I was wrong. This week at Memorial, my daughter has been subjected to it, not from her fellow students, but from her teachers and her principal. She hasn't worn a mask to school after watching the news and watching the meeting for Monday, showing that the mandate that we were all following was declared null and void. She chose to keep herself mask-free. In doing so, her desk has been moved away from other students by her principal. She was seated at the back of the room for choir yesterday by her teacher, and she has to go to the back of the line if she leaves the classroom. This, after I was told in an email from her principal that she would be treated with warmth and respect. She had one question: why? Have you had to answer that question for your child? Why is she being ostracized? I emailed the superintendent and the principal to let them know she wouldn't wear a mask if she chose not to before this happened. The school's model for this year is, at Memorial, it starts with me. What a joke. The leadership and people she should be looking up to have basically shamed her for standing up for something she believes in. Compliance. That's what this district and the schools want. It's ridiculous. I emailed this board on Wednesday night, telling you all about what happened. Do you know who replied? None of you. Not one of you. Did anybody even look at those emails? Just a question. You were elected to be the voice for the parents of this district. Do you know how you were elected? You were elected by our choice. A choice we made as parents. You've heard that 69% of the teachers want to keep masks on. Let's take a poll from the students who wear them all day. What is that percentage? A mask option still lets everyone have a choice. Now is the time that you let us and our
30
children
seconds.
make the choice to wear masks or not. As all parents wait for your decision, I'm still going to wait for a response from my email. That's all.
Hi, my name is Tamara Gallagher. I have a second and fifth grader at Cruz. I have been apprehensive to speak at a board meeting for fear of other families judging us for the choices that I have made to maintain my kids' physical and mental health. We don't judge others for their choices, so I hope others don't judge us. I 100% agree that mask mandates, unnecessary quarantines, and testing of the healthy, and protocols differentiating between the vaccinated and unvaccinated need to stop today. We talk health and safety when it comes to physical health, but what about mental health? These two things go hand in hand. Now I'm going to switch gears with my thoughts. As parents, teachers, and administrators, we are the example for all of these kids. But what kind of example are we showing when we continue to fuel this horrific divide in our community and our country? There is zero middle ground anymore, so it is forcing people to choose a side. But COVID and many other issues that affect education is complicated. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach. We are letting politics and fear cloud our thinking. The us against them mentality is getting really old, and as the adults, we need to start figuring out how to work together in a collaborative way. I hear teachers talking about making their students critical thinkers and being respectful of others' opinions, but are we all providing that same example for them? Since my kids have been in this district, we have had the most wonderful, amazing, and engaging teachers, and that's why my kids love school. My kids' teachers seem to genuinely care about them, but after listening to some of the teachers talk on Monday, my heart hurt. It felt like some teachers were talking about kids as if they are walking germ machines, and if they take their masks off, they're going to immediately spread disease. It is a known fact that kids are more likely to get sick in the winter. Getting sick helps kids build strong immune systems and give them the ability to fight off future infections. But COVID is a disease that does not affect the vast majority of their age group. Other things like the common cold, flu, strep, RSV, and many other countless viruses have a greater effect on them. As a teacher, you picked a profession to work with kids, so this is not new news. Where was the concern before COVID when there would be at least 1 to 2 kids out in my kids' classes every week in the winter with other things like flu or strep? There was nothing being done to stop the spread back then. By now, I think we can all agree that COVID is real, and it is here to stay since we are entering year 3. No matter what your beliefs are, at this point, we have all probably been affected by COVID in some way. My heart generally goes out to any vulnerable or immune-compromised students or staff members. But if you were in this category prior to COVID, what did you do to
30
protect
seconds.
yourself then? It seems if you are in this category, any respiratory virus can have a detrimental effect on you. Our schools and district are the heart of our communities, but as much as my kids have thrived in this district, I am losing faith. Instead of continuing to fuel this divide and trying to control one another because we disagree, why we don't stand together to find some common ground no matter what the board decides and be the example for other communities and districts. I am a firm believer that the most impactful changes start right in your own backyard. I'm going to
time is
end with
up.
this. Can I end with my quote real quick?
Your time is up. 3 minutes per person.
Hi, Michelle Claremont. I have a 8th grader at CMS. We have a framework and a model for how to address peanut allergies, which is an airborne allergies sometimes. Parents receive a note before school starts. Someone in your child's class has an airborne allergy to nuts. Will you please refrain from sending peanuts? Please. And upon receiving that note, parents take steps to be careful. Most recognize how socially tone deaf it would be to send their child into that class with a box of nuts and a t-shirt that says, "You have an EpiPen? I've got Skippy. You do you, I'll do me." That sounds ridiculous, and yet, most parents, I think, intuitively appreciate how their child is in a micro community, a small, important community of 25 to 75 classmates whom they will be in community with for multiple years. And no one wants to socially poop in the punch bowl. So culturally, we have been divided on a political macro level, okay? And I appreciate the civil liberty energy some of you might feel about mandates that don't ask, please. Mary Day eloquently shared an example of her son's school, a school that does have optional mask wearing, where all of the students recognized a vulnerable person among them, and then they chose kindly, voluntarily, to wear masks as they shared class time with that vulnerable person. So we have a model, okay? I do not hear that model in your plan, okay? We know how we deal with peanuts at lunch. We know how we deal with kids who have airborne allergies. We do not segregate. We have values of all inclusivity. So, as you ratify, please run your plan through the peanut thought experiment to ensure you have models and methods for honoring requests for accommodation, because that's protected by the law. And what students did before this is they had 504 plans,
30
and they
seconds.
still do. So, many people stood up and bravely shared vulnerabilities last week. They asked you on a very personal level, please. I hope your plan is fair, equitable, and answers those needs with more than a you do you framework based on macro political views. Thank you.
My name is Kimberly Saraki. Finally, thank you. Thank you for finally listening to the rule of law, listening to we the people that elected you board members. Every family has endured a lot during COVID. Every family. Everyone knows someone who is vulnerable or immune compromised or elderly. We all know someone that has died with COVID. Not necessarily from COVID, because the CDC won't release those numbers. Look, every 5-year-old and up qualifies to be vaccinated. So if you're that worried about this disease, then go and get vaccinated. Hell, I'll even drive you there. And keep your mask on. I would never demand you to try and tell me to take it off or to tell you what's best for you and your kids. So don't tell me what's best for mine. Tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. Stop living in fear. Dr. Staywick, when are you going to address the Teachers Union President, Julie Harris, going on a public forum and explaining how parents are going to have to be re-educated in the regards to the CRT seed program? I'm still waiting on a response.
Any final public comment?
Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Rice. My family and I have been Tinley Park and District 146 residents for over 17 years. My youngest is a 6th grader at Central. On Monday, I watched the live stream of the committee of the whole meeting, and I listened as parents and staff share their concerns to the board regarding masking requirements. I listened to the parents who want the board to drop the masking requirements. And even after the district's legal counsel spoke, I listened as several board members quickly dismissed the staff's very real concerns about dropping the mask mandate. In fact, Mr. Lloyd, you asked legal counsel if the district could join the lawsuit. And Ms. Dunlap, you made it very clear that you also want to drop the mask mandate in our schools. We are all tired of wearing masks, but wearing masks has allowed our schools to stay open this school year so that our children can attend in person. And that's what we all want, right? Masking is the simplest tool we have to fight a communicable disease like COVID. It is the kindest action we can take because it tells you that I care about you and your well-being. So I will wear my mask to prevent me from possibly giving you COVID. It tells our teachers and staff that my child cares about them and will continue to do what they can to help protect them from COVID. Like your children, my child has a right to an education. My child also has a right to a safe and healthy environment. All of our children in this school district have these rights. So if the board votes to drop the masking requirement against the advice of legal counsel, against the advice of the CDC, against the advice of the American Association of Pediatrics, will there be a masking requirement for unvaccinated staff and students, or will those mitigations be completely dropped too? During these discussions, I keep hearing about everyone's choice to vaccinate or not, to wear masks or not. I feel that many of us parents who want a safe learning environment for our children have been forced to accept some sort of hybrid or full-time remote learning option, over the last 2 years, and I accepted that option at one time, but I'm done with that too. I don't want to go to a remote learning environment in case we have to completely shut down the school because there's some sort of outbreak. I want my child and all of our kids to enjoy the benefits of in-person learning, and we need to find a way that all of our kids can do that. I don't know any of you personally or professionally, and that's okay. We all don't need to know each other. We are all part of the same community, but we do need to work together to make sure that our community
30 seconds.
thrives, and that includes the health of everyone living and working in the school district. As board members, you have chosen a leadership role in this community, and you are ultimately responsible for the health and safety of over 2,000 students in this district, as well as several hundred teachers and staff that have come to work and interact with our kids 5 days a week. I am placing my child's health in your hands. We are all placing our health in your hands. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name's Shane Wilson. Been here before. Your plan, frankly, doesn't make that much sense to me because I don't know how you enact it. You have rules like, well, masks will be optional if you're vaccinated. How do you know who's vaccinated? You've never asked us. You've actually specifically avoided asking us. How do you enforce that? You say if you're in the red, we're going to recommend masks for all. Recommend. Your agenda says masks are required. You can't even get the people in this room to all agree to that. Your recommendation is written on the wind. Because that's not what's really going on. It's just, you just want them gone. It doesn't matter that the COVID levels are as high as they were a year ago. We still want the plan from July when COVID was much lower. It doesn't matter that we had a new variant of the virus, that everyone masking helps reduce, and that by only having some people masked, the effectiveness is down 75%. Here's what's really missing from your plan. For the people who are not safe under these conditions, for the people for whom they are still vulnerable to a disease that has killed over 900,000 people, that is still among the most contagious diseases we've ever encountered. What is your plan for them? How do you make our kids feel safe in this environment? Nothing in your plan says anything about that. There's no equitable education for kids who can't come to school under those conditions. There's no equitable plan for people with respiratory ailments or other health issues, other than tough luck. 70% of teachers said this is a bad idea. You're going against them. Throughout this entire pandemic, at least 30% of the families in this district have begged you not to rush us back to school, not to take away masks. And again, you've overruled them, you've ignored their needs, and you've come up with alternate plans like, well, I'm sure we can have extracurricular activities at school, at a time when no one's going to school. It is not ethical, it is not right to demand that children put themselves in harm's way for an education. You have to provide them another plan, and that plan shouldn't be isolating. It shouldn't be, oh, you guys aren't on board with the mask plan, you have to be remote. Also, it is not ethical, it is not right to put children in harm's way from bullying, as Ms. Lyons described, from those who don't agree with this plan. Teachers at this very school on Tuesday came in without masks because they decided they could. Students are willing to hold that over other students. Your plan does not take care of all your kids. Your plan does not look out for all your kids, only the ones that you agree with. That's not fair. That's not right. That's not your job.
Time's up. Final public comment. Hearing none. Moving on, 6.1, ratify COVID-19 mitigation strategies. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Education adopt the mitigation strategies in Plans 1 and 2 as presented and enact Plan 1 effective Monday, February 14th, 2022, and authorize the superintendent to switch to Plan 2 if the appellate court ultimately upholds the state mandates.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion from the board? Hearing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Dunlap.
Yes.
Shalata.
Yes.
Malloy.
Yes.
Gasper.
Yes.
Lloyd, yes. Barry.
Yes.
Nenza.
Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.